this is animating way too fast. You probably want something a little more subtle like this, but I thought you might not notice the animation if I only had this up there. So I sped it up for you. Anyway, I'm going to show you how to build this nice glowing shadow animation in SwiftUI. Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Here's a quick breakdown of how I built this animation. It's a Z-stack, and on top of the Z-stack is a basic SwiftUI button, nothing special there, but below it is an animated angular gradient that's blurred out. But when you combine them, it looks like the shadow behind it is animating and rotating. Looks great. So here in Xcode, brand new SwiftUI project. I haven't done anything. This is the default hello world that they give you. Let's get that basic button in there first. So highlight all this, get rid of it. Like I said, we're in a Z-stack, so that's first and foremost. And then the bottom of the Z-stack is where the shadow gradient animation goes, but on top is our button. And we're gonna do an action and a label. So the action, this is where you would do the thing, right? You would write your code. We're just here to play with pretty UI. We don't care what the button does. Now the label is what our button looks like. So we'll say it's a text get premium. You know, we want them to subscribe to our app. We want the nice pretty button. Hey, press this button, press this button. And the rest is just subjective styling. So you can style this however you want. We'll do bold, we'll do font of .title 3 and font design .mono space, just to get a nice little look there. I want the text to be black, not the button blue. So we'll say black, because it's going to be a teal foreground, but we'll get there in a second. And a frame of width and height, do 260 by 60. Just make a really big button to showcase our animation here. And then now for our background.teal. And we want this to be in a rounded rect. Give me a corner radius and style. So the corner radius is 20 and style is continuous. Nice rounded corners there. And then I think this makes it pop a little more. I'm gonna do an overlay, basically just give it a stroke, a little outline. Same thing, rounded rectangle, corner radius and style. Corner radius of 20, style.continuous, except now we'll give it a stroke of .gray, .opacity, 0.5, line width of 1. So just a subtle border. I think it makes it pop against the animated shadow background. But anyway, this is our basic get premium button. This is the top of our Z-stack. So now that we got that in place, let's work on what y'all came here for, and that is the animated shadow background that you see here. So first things first, we basically want to match the shape behind it. So we'll do a rounded rectangle, corner radius and style, 20 and continuous. Now, this would be different based on what you're building. Well, that's not right. But you know, if you're building a circle button or a square or some other view that's a different shape, you want to match the shape of your shadow with the shape of what it's shadowing, right? That makes sense. So I'm going to leave this big here to basically show you how we get to this animation, like step by step. So the fill on our rounded rectangle is going to be in angular gradient. And we want colors, center, and angle. So the colors we want, this is an array of whatever colors you want this to be. So we're gonna go .teal because we want it to look like it's, you know, the shadow of the button we have. And we're gonna mix in .pink. I've experimented with other colors, but pink and teal contrast. Pink and teal contrast so you can actually see the difference. I was experimenting with teal and indigo and they kind of blended too much. It was too subtle, right? But for the sake of this tutorial and showing you this animation, teal and pink. Now you want to have teal as the end color. I'll show you why in a second. Let me finish this. So center is going to be center, and then angle is going to be degrees 360. This is what we're going to animate. So for now, we'll say 360. So this is that angular gradient you give. Now, if I just did teal and pink and not have this third teal here, here's what would happen. You get a very sharp line. Let me actually comment out my button here. We're going to comment out my button for this whole part so you can actually see us just working with the gradient. But you see that sharp line at like 3 o'clock clockwise? So that is why I put a teal at the end, the same starting color and the same ending color, because that smooths that out. Because if you didn't, this would show up in our animation and you would notice it. So that's why after the pink here, I'm gonna do a .teal, and then you'll see that get smoothed out in our gradient. So before we make this the same shape of our button, I wanna show you the animation. So how we're gonna animate this is we're gonna change the degrees here from 360 to 0 based on a Boolean. So we'll do @state private var is animating equals false. Now you can trigger this animation on a button press or however you like to trigger this. We're gonna just do it on appear. Like as soon as you appear, start animating. So .on appear for our shadow here with animation. And then it gave me the autocomplete because I've typed this before in the rehearsal, and I'll explain that here in a second, but we'll say is animating equals true. So it's a linear animation. We're not adding a curve, ease in, ease out, whatever. The duration is 1, that's the fast animation so you can see it. I want it to repeat forever, and I don't want it to auto reverse. So auto reverse would be, in our case, it would spin around 360 and then it would spin the other way. So it would go clockwise 360, counterclockwise 360. Maybe you want that. Looks like it's ping ponging back and forth. I just want it to not auto reverse. So now to get this animation going, we need to put a ternary operator here in our degrees. We'll say, if it's animating, if that is true, do 360. If it is false, do 0. So now you can see, okay, it's spinning way too fast. That's what I had at the intro of the video. Again, something more subtle, we'll say 7 seconds. And you can see it slowly rotating. Because again, you don't want to like spaz out on your user and just flash all this stuff at them. Just a nice subtle rotation I think looks really good. But you can see the animation starting to come together. So let me actually uncomment our button here. Okay, there's our button. Now that background isn't the shadow we're looking for, but we just need to do some things to our rounded rectangle up here to make it look like a shadow. So first things first, I'm gonna do this above the on appear. Let's give it a frame. And again, we're gonna match what we have below. Width of 260, height of 60. Now you're not gonna see it because it's fully behind there. So now we have our animated gradient behind it. Again, I'll comment out the button to show you what's going on behind it. Cool, there it is. You can see the animation going slowly because it's over 7 seconds. If we put our button back up there, now we just need to make this look like a shadow. And how we do that is we give it a blur. Now, the level of your blur, the radius of your blur determines how much is showing. So what I had on the demo in the intro was blur of 20. So there you can see our shadow, and you'll probably have to play with colors based on light mode or dark mode, but you can see the shadow subtly animating. But if I change this to a radius of 5, now you can see how tight that shadow is. If I do a radius of 50, look how blurred and diffused that shadow looks. I'm actually going to run this on my iPhone 16 Pro because on dark mode, the shadow pops a little more. There you can see the diffused blur of 50, which I think looks really, really cool and really, really subtle. And again, that's playing with the blur. So you see the super diffused blur of 50. Now if I do a blur of, like I said, 5, run that on dark mode, that's a little more sharper, a little more tight. Looks like a highlight, you can see it there. So whatever style of shadow you're going for, whether it's super diffused, medium diffused, or very, very tight, that is all changed by the blur setting. So you can get whatever shadow animation you like here. Awesome stuff. Now, of course, this can be refactored into like custom modifiers, button styles, or maybe just a button struct. There's many different ways to, refactor this and make it cleaner and reusable. Like I say in my tutorials, I like to leave things spelled out so you can understand what's going on rather than trying to follow the refactor and piece that all together. So, and refactoring is subjective on like how you like to do it and project dependent. But I do want to say that yes, this should be refactored somehow to fit your project and what you need it for. And if you're here learning how to make awesome shadows for your buttons, I know you're building amazing apps. And I think it's best to have a website to showcase your work, whether it's portfolio showing all sorts of projects, or if it's the official website for your app on the App Store. A good website is a must, and that brings me to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to help you get that iOS developer portfolio up and running very quickly. Now I know we're developers, we can build a website ourselves, but we're also iOS developers, and I would argue there's an opportunity cost of your time. Now, do you want to spend your time learning about web development, responsive design, all the different browsers, or do you want to spend your time building apps? So that's why I always recommend letting Squarespace take that off your plate to build your iOS developer portfolio. They have all kinds of beautiful themes and templates to get you started, and you can use their next generation website editor with the Fluid engine to just really unlock all the creativity in the world. You can even use Squarespace Blueprint and Squarespace AI to help you figure out what to write on your website, because that's always the hardest part. Like, I don't even know what to say here. Throw it into Squarespace's AI and they'll help you out. They handle all the SEO and analytics for you. Again, Squarespace handling your website just takes so much off your plate. So when you're ready to get started, go to squarespace.com. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/SeanAllen to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.